Shit. Wait, are we gonna say welcome back to Lions Den?
Right, right. Sure, go ahead.
Uh, all right. Hello, guys. Welcome back to Lions Den. I'm your co-host Stanley,
I'm
and
your co-host Yeltsin.
uh, we got a lot of feedbacks from you guys, and we really do appreciate it. What do you think about all the feedbacks that you got?
I'm quite surprised that people were willing to watch the entire 30 something minutes of our podcast because
I think
nowadays
it's
people's
37 minutes.
nowadays people's attention span is like 50 to 20 seconds. They could only watch YouTube shorts or TikTok or Instagram shorts. So yeah, I'm really impressed. And we would eventually cater to those audience who are into like shorter format videos. But in the meantime, we find longer format videos like this like really meaningful. Um,
Yeah, we
oh,
got
and by the
like
way,
300 something views, right? In a
right,
matter of 3 days. That's pretty
right.
impressive, honestly. I thought it's gonna be like 50 something views at most,
And we were joking about
but
that most of the views comes from they come from it, Stanley's like Tinder account or something. Um, he's been doing some free
yeah, for
advertisement
sure.
on dating apps and stuff. But I've deleted all of mine, so it's all your hard work,
Yo,
brother.
stop trying to, yeah, stop trying to be different. Stop trying. You're the same. We're on the same boat.
No, and by the way, if you have
Yeah,
any
but
comments or any feedback, or we would love to hear the questions to think about in your daily lives, relating to being in the 20s. And yeah, I think your questions or your thoughts will be greatly appreciated, and I'm sure the audience would
we're gonna
also.
cover it.
Yeah, and all your names will be anonymized, so don't worry about um, having your names out there. But thank you again, thank you very much. And today we're talking about meaning, context, and cognitive dissonance. Like usual, we don't have anything outlined. We're just doing a free flow format, and so like since we don't have any starting point, I guess I could start. So
Mm,
I, I always find meaning interesting because positive psychologist Martin Seligman, he proposed the PERMA model for human flourishing. P stands for positive emotions, E stands for engagement, R stands for relationships, M stands for meaning, and A stands for accomplishments. And in the sequence, I always found meaning to the hardest to attain. So Martin Seligman, he said that when we're feeling lost or we're not where we want to be in life, usually um, one letter in sequence um, is not touched on or not taken care of at that moment. So yeah, I guess meaning is quite important. We, other than food, air, um, and other basic needs of life like shelter, meaning is what keeps us going, right?
it's like
Um,
the Maslow's
hierarchy of needs.
hierarchy of needs. Yeah, exactly. So you have your basics, right? Like your food, sustenance, and all that. And at the top of the hierarchy, there is a self-realization and achieving what actually you want. I think it
Right.
also ties back
After,
to our last episode, which is the social script. So and we talked about how we deviate from the social script to achieve what we actually want, right?
right. Yeah,
So
Maslow's hierarchy of needs, after basic needs, self-esteem, I think a self-actualization and then self-transcendence. And some people would actually argue that um, self-transcendence is part of self-actualization rather than being in sequence. So I suddenly forgot the name of the author, but the author of Man's Search for Meaning, he was a Jewish Holocaust survivor during the Second World War, and he was also a psychiatrist. And and in the book, he talks about how self-actualization is actually a self-transcendence is actually a byproduct of self-actualization. Because, for example, let's say when we love someone so much as a parent, um, when you love someone so much, you're willing to sacrifice your own life for the well-being of someone else, and that is self-transcendence. But it's also actualizing yourself as a human being. You're realizing your potentials. So I find that quite interesting. It's quite touching, really, because um, in our day-to-day lives, we are quite selfish for our own needs, and um, it's impressive that
You
there's something that could bring us to a higher calling.
you feel like the sense of self-sacrificing is very in touch with your communal nature. Like it's very innate. Your dedication to do the community you're in, or it is very um what do you call it? Like it's very innate within you,
Right,
or it's a
because
sense of obligation to society.
I don't think it's an obligation. I think it's a sense of direction. So, when one of my favorite books called The Courage to Be Disliked, the author mentioned that when you're feeling lost, that's a good sign because it means that you're exercising your autonomy, your freedom. Because if you're following the social script, you're following a blueprint, then of course you're not lost because um, you're following someone's footsteps. But when you're feeling lost, you should look at a North Star, and the North Star is always contribute to others. As long as you follow this general direction of contributing to others, you'll be in the right direction. There won't be a precisely laid out path for you, but then um, you're heading in the right direction if you follow this North Star. What are your
So
thoughts on that?
are you objecting the idea? Are you objecting the idea of uh, the sense of individuality that we are promoting in our society, and more you're leaning towards the yeah, like I said, the communal, like what benefits others instead of what benefits me, and we have to ditch that selfishness in order to achieve what we actually want.
I think if you only live for yourself, you'll be quite unhinged and quite lost in life because um, I think at a certain point in life, even if you indulge in all the hedonism you want or only serve yourself, at one point you feel lost. Like I think the word individual comes from being in a context of a society, a group of people, and an individual means that the smallest piece or the smallest piece that's indivisible. So being an individual literally means that it's only viewed in the context of a society. And I think that ties to our subject today, context. So a lot of times, Stanley, I think you could relate, and most people could relate, is that we feel like we're small specks of dust in the universe, and anything we do wouldn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. So why do we even bother, right? And if you actually look at our
Exactly.
own systems, our own limbs, our joints all work in a certain way. Our hearts, our organs, our eyes, each individual piece of our body are designed perfectly. But when you put everything together, the individual, the human, um, the aggregate lacks meaning. Like we don't know why we're here. We're only here because of genetic mutation and um, the climate. Somehow they align, and um, yeah, somehow we're able to exist in this period of time in this particular part of the universe. So even with political systems or governments or economies or ideologies or uh, so many things, right? Um, or laws are only meaningful in the context of societies, right? If you zoom out, if you look at laws in terms of the grander scheme of things beyond Earth, laws wouldn't really have any meaning. It will lose its meaning. So I think most people, when they don't have meaning in life, I think they're either too zoomed out or they're too zoomed in. So changing perspective would put meaning back into your life. I'm not sure if you have
You were talking
experienced
about,
something like this.
yeah,
Go ahead.
for sure. But I just want to point out the law part. I recently watched I think it's a lecture on that. Basically the speaker was talking about how our society is built on essentially trust. So if we don't have trust for each other, like if we're not talking about a society as a whole and we just focus on the individuality of a person, the society's not going to work because everything is built on trust. Like let's say money, because like we believe that money has its value. That's why, and we put that trust into other people who has the same idea. That's why we can have a sense of order. And what do you think about that?
So you're
Do you think
saying
that's
that,
applicable?
so the meaning, you think that, the example you gave with money, so you think that meaning is only given in mutual agreement?
I
Is
think
that
meaning
what
is,
you're saying?
I think there has to be some sort of communication or interaction within two or more individuals uh, in order for a meaning to be meaningful.
So if you're
So let's
saying,
say,
go ahead, go ahead.
so that just take I was just taking trust as an example. I think how trust works is there has to be two or more people in order for them to build a um long lasting relationship, and a trust a trustworthy person has to be interacting with another person in order for that trust. The whole premise of trust is basically just um the subtle feeling you have when you're interacting with a different person, right? Different individual. So I think that's what gives them trust a meaning.
Right. I feel you. I feel you.
So when we're talking about like how we feel so trivial in this void, it's like we're living in a simulation. It's if we detach ourselves from the idea of um individuality and focusing on more like you're benefiting other people, or what do you think about like my idea of that meaning? Because I'm not sure if that's very correct.
I mean, I don't think there's any correct way of viewing meaning, because meaning, I think, is anything that keeps you going, right? I think Albert Camus said the literal meaning of life is whatever you're doing that prevents you from killing yourself. So I don't think that's one absolute right meaning for every person. Um, but are you saying that there's some meanings in life that are, let's say, more meaningful than others? The,
No, I
the more
think I
meaningful
think
ones,
there can't be meaning without the intervention of another individual. So the feeling that, oh, I have a meaning in life just because I exist is, I object that, like it's very contradicting. But like everyone, you hear a lot of people saying, oh, my meaning is to achieve that because this is what I want. It doesn't make sense to me, because I feel like you have to take into consideration of what other people view you as a individual.
So we circle back
And
to an individual being the indivisible part of a group of people, a community, a society. So you think that meaning should
yes,
always serve something that is beyond oneself.
yeah, exactly. It's like how you view a certain event in life. Like, let's take a tree for example. If a tree falls down in the forest, if you're not there and you didn't hear the sound, did that tree actually falls? Are you a realist, or you think even though you're not there, the tree still falls? That action still occurred with or without you. You know,
Right.
it's like I view meaning as a an event that only if you're there you can experience the actual meaning. If you're not there, the meaning doesn't actually make sense.
I have something
It actually didn't.
that is very contrary to what you think. So do you think good or bad can happen to you without you experiencing them?
It depends on how you define good or bad. Like, are we talking about
For example,
our
Epicurus, he said, Epicurus, I think he's a pioneer of Stoicism. He said, when death is here, life is not. When life is here, death is not. So he mentioned that for an event to be good or bad, a subject has to be present to experience the event. And second premise is that um, at death, there's no subject of any possible experience to experience death. So it is irrational to fear death because there's no subject there to experience death. So he argued that death cannot be bad because you cannot experience it. But I think it was Thomas Nagel or someone else who said bad could be, there's some bads that are non-experiential bads, not experiential. So for example, let's say someone injured your reputation behind your back. Let's say um, Stanley is such a playboy, like he screws around, like he whatever, and it's still injury to your
that's not
reputation,
true.
right?
I just have
Yeah,
to make that clear.
I
That's
mean,
definitely not true.
I'm just making an example. It's not true. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's why
that's
I'm
a
saying that.
great,
Let's
great
say
example you have there.
let's say if you never knew if you never knew about people spreading this rumor that's injuring you, even if you never experienced this um, injury to reputation, it's still injuring you, right? It's still something bad. It's still something bad to you, even though you didn't experience it. You get where I'm going at. So,
Yeah.
or
It's
it's like
like you
someone
don't have
praising
to.
you.
You don't have to. Are you saying like you? Yeah, it's like you don't have cancer, but you know how cancer is bad. Like,
Um, that is something different because um, you know that's bad, but it's not happening to you. But what I'm saying is that something good or bad could still happen to you without you experiencing them. So let's say I always tell my friends like Stanley's such a knowledgeable person on art, and he he he's a generous person.
okay, I
He
kind of get what you mean.
like so
I
so
kind
and
of
so,
get.
right? I
Yeah.
I like these praises are good things happening to you, right? But you don't experience them. You don't experience them because people might praise you behind your back. So even though you don't experience these goods,
And they might do the opposite, right?
they're still benefiting you.
Yes.
Right.
So, so you what's the question? Like, do I
Right.
believe?
Because just now you were mentioning that what meaning has to be experienced or something like that. So that's why I was trying to connect the dots and see if maybe meaning does not need to be experienced. You get what I mean? Or do
Yes.
you know where I'm getting at?
Yeah.
So like, I think most people are not clear what the meaning is because like I think most people find the meaning in responsibility. For example, if you're a mother or if you're a lawyer or a teacher, um, your meaning would be, let's say, being a teacher is like educating a new generation of students to benefit the
But
society, or like being a mother to raise your kids and being a good parent, whatever. And like these
but
people know
but
their meaning,
I think what differentiate meaning from something that is like you say good and bad. It's I think meaning is more like a actualization of the meaning, right? Like you have to actually want like have the desire to actualize your thinking in order for that meaning to make sense, correct?
let me clarify. Do
So
you mean
but
that you have to be intentional for the meaning to be valid? You have to be intentional,
it's
and
like like a mother say, oh, a woman say, oh, I want to have a kid or like I have to start a family. That's like her meaning of life. But if she doesn't actually do it, is that still her meaning or is she just saying that? You know, there has to be an actualization part in order for that meaning to make sense. But something that is good or bad, it's more of a opinion. It's more like is more so an opinion than an experience, let's say.
right,
So but also um good and bad is more on the foundation of a I don't know if that's politically correct, but on religion. Because like if I think morals our moral standards and whatever is built on a sense of belief that oh I'm not gonna kick the baby because you know it's bad, but why is it bad? You know, like what makes your meaning good or bad? I don't think it's you can say a meaning is good or bad, but the actual meaning itself has to be actualized. Has to you have to take action to actualize it.
right, right. Um, yeah, what you mentioned is quite interesting. You're basically referring to, if I'm not mistaken, John Locke. He said we're born as blank states, what he called tabula rasa. Um, and he argued that we need religions to basically give us moral values. He believes that we're born like completely blank, and of course nowadays we have the argument of nature versus nurture, like how much of your personality or how much of your thoughts and morality comes from your genetics and how much comes from your environment, your upbringing. Um, and just now you mentioned that meaning comes from action and actualizing. I agree with you, but right now I'm playing the contrarian. I agree with you a lot, but I'm trying to play up some counter arguments. So imagine a drunk just going through life and just drinking and just like enjoying his time. Like he isn't going anywhere, but he's just existing. And you could say that he doesn't have any meaning in life, but according to Albert Camus, let's say, whatever the literal meaning of life is, whatever you're doing right now that prevents you from killing yourself. Let's say if that is the meaning of life
The
for the
cup of
drunk,
coffee,
then
basically.
yeah, the cup of coffee. Like, go ahead. I
Yes.
think, I think, I think. Um, in our conversation, you mentioned that cup of coffee example. Go ahead. I think you should share with the audience.
I think he mentioned in A Happy Death, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that, but it's there's this line called "Should I kill myself or have a cup of coffee?" Basically. So every day you wake up and the cup of coffee is your initial drive to start the day. That's what is preventing yourself from killing yourself. and that gives you the meaning in at least your day. You know, I'm not gonna say it is the meaning of life, but it is your meaning of the day.
Right. So
Yeah.
so so maybe meaning doesn't have to be this grand thing that we need to put in a lot of thought or action. Even the smallest things in life, like being grateful of our friends and that simple coffee in the morning, these small things that
But
keep
does
us
that is
alive.
that a meaning? Is that a meaning, or that's just a excuse? Because I think when I think about meaning, it's more grand. It's more of you can't say coffee is your meaning. You know, like I don't know.
Right,
It's more
right,
like your life meaning, like your life model and like what you live by. It's more like your meaning, but the cup of coffee that's stopping you from killing yourself. It's
yeah,
can we say the word kill? I don't think we can say the word on the life yourself. You know, it's more so a antidote that is that cures your sickness.
right. By the way, we don't have to be PC here. We're not censoring ourselves. Just say whatever you
Yeah,
want, and I think yeah, let's keep it the way it is. Just if you want to be not PC, then not PC. If you want to be PC, then PC. But we're both very non-PC people.
yeah, we're very incorrect people. That's it. I just put it that way. You know.
Right. Yeah. So you think that the coffee is only an antidote to um, a lack of meaning, but it's not meaning itself.
I don't think it's the meaning itself. I think when I think about meaning, it's definitely I don't know. Like, how do you? It's kind of tough. Like, you can went from meaning to meaningless in a second. You know, like
Right. And I think the other subject we want to talk about today is cognitive dissonance, and I think um, what we were discussing, meaning and not meaning. How do we know if we're actually living the way we should? Is through the test of what I call the test of cognitive dissonance. So um, Zoom just pops up.
can
We
you
have
just
10 minutes
explain
left.
what cognitive? Yeah, but can you just like briefly explain what cognitive dissonance is
So
to
cognitive dissonance is
people?
a mental discomfort. Sorry, let me repeat that. Cognitive dissonance is a mental discomfort we experience when our values or beliefs do not match our actions. So we either have to change our beliefs or our actions so that they are congruent to alleviate that mental discomfort. So you can imagine, um, let's say, a very altruistic person working for a corporation that um, takes advantage of a certain group of people in a underprivileged part of the world or something like that, and the pay is good. Um, the pay allows him to take care of his family, and but he struggles going to work every day because his values of doing good to the world and his action of um, working against the beliefs causes him severe mental discomfort. So he either has to change his action and maybe work in a different job or change his beliefs so that they're congruent. And I found that through like talking to people in my previous internship that most people actually end up sticking with the same action and their values or their beliefs slowly assimilate to what they're doing to alleviate that discomfort because at the end of the day they have to pay their bills, um, they have to be in that social circle and everyone around them thinks the same or at least acts the same. So it creates an echo chamber. So eventually, sooner or later, the values will change and they will continue with the action. It's actually quite rare that people would change their action to align with their beliefs.
Yeah, I mean, you can take a a more fun example as like if you're in a toxic relationship, you kind of assimilate yourself into your partner, you know, like if your partner is toxic, you will learn to accept that and become toxic yourself in order to combat the discomfort. That's what makes it a toxic relationship, right? That's why people stay in a relationship and don't feel terrible after a period of time because they're immune to it. And that's exactly what happened to Yeltsin. Yeah.
No, no. You sound like you're talking from experience.
I'm not talking from experience, but
I think that's called Stockholm syndrome, right? When you
yeah,
sympathize
you know,
with the
like
abuser.
yeah, definitely sympathize with the abuser for sure.
Right.
Yeah,
And
like we cannot truly want what we want, so we should just love what we do, you know?
but I think that's what Steve Jobs says. Steve Jobs mentioned that we should love what we do, but nowadays people say that we should do what we love, which is actually quite or very different. Um, because what Steve Jobs mentioned is that we have to align our beliefs with the action, even though we might not like what we're doing. To make ourselves feel better, we have to um, basically start loving what we're doing so that our beliefs and actions are congruent so that we don't have any cognitive dissonance. But nowadays, I think
Yeah,
people
but
are chasing the passions and stuff. It's a different approach.
yeah, all right. That's just because we have like 5 minutes left.
Yeah, but I
Can
don't know
you?
why. Like during COVID, Zoom didn't restrict the recordings to like 40 minutes, but somehow maybe after COVID, like Zoom's business is shit. So now now they do not allow meetings to last more than 40 minutes. It's weird, but
But do you think
uh,
by the assimilation kind of distort your idea of your initial meaning in life because of that says, you know, a pressure from society, the societal pressure or the financial stability part that is stopping you from achieving your actualizing your actual meaning. So
yeah,
the cognitive dissonance, yeah,
perhaps people are not using the cognitive dissonance test. They might have that mental discomfort, but they don't alleviate that. Like they don't consciously think about, oh, why am I so uncomfortable with doing this action or like doing this job? They just continue to go with it, and then at some point earlier or later, their beliefs will slowly change to match the action. But if we could catch our cognitive dissonance early on, then we could still intervene and basically preserve our values and be the person we want to be rather than just allowing us slowly to drifting and becoming the person that um, our actions or um, let's say the flow
yeah.
make us be, right?
Do
It's
you
actually
think
quite dangerous.
yeah, but do you think like soldiers, for example, they went to war and they are in the trenches and killing people. That is not what they want because like we don't want to kill, right? Like that's we are built not to kill. But when they come back from the war, they are sometimes, you know, they suffer from PTSDs, like they're shell shocked. Do you think that's an idea of the cognitive dissonance that is, you know, causing the pain that they're feeling?
I think
Because
I think
they
you could say
thought
that.
it's not in line with yeah,
You could say that they're still suffering through their cognitive dissonance, but maybe if they really want, let's say if you look at World War II, right? I think people who fought during the World War II, I'm totally being unscientific, but maybe they had less cognitive dissonance than people, let's say, who fought during the Vietnam War. You get what I mean? Because during World War II, they were fighting against the Nazis,
I think
the evil, whatever. So
yeah,
even if they killed people, they still felt like they're doing the right thing. So perhaps they experienced less PTSD. I'm not quoting
I
any
think
science. I could be
I read
completely wrong.
somewhere. I think I read somewhere that people who suffer from PTSD in war are not suffering from PTSD. It's not like they see a lot of brutal events that makes them suffer from PTSD. It's more like they're disgusted by their own action that is not in line with their belief, and it's not um there with their moral standards. So that's why they are in such pain, because they couldn't believe what they did in, let's say, World War II, or the Korean War, Cold War, whatever.
Right. Yeah, I see where you're going. Unfortunately,
Yeah,
guys,
but
we only have a minute-ish left. Thank you very
you want to
much for
sum
joining.
up what we did?
So we discussed meaning and how we find meaning in context, and we also talked about whether good or bad things um, need to be experienced for them to be good or bad. And we talked about the test of cognitive dissonance to help us maintain the person we are and becoming the person we want to be. Thank you very much
Okay.
for joining our discussion. We would love to have you on our next episode. And please, if you have any feedback like good or bad, or any questions you have, or any thoughts you and your friends being in your 20s might have, we would love to hear them, and we would love to share with the audience. Thank you again,
Really do
and I wish you a
appreciate it.
great week. Thank you.